Welcome back to SportsLine. Having fun with my good buddy Justin Bradford from Penalty Box Radio. Follow him on Twitter at Justin B. Bradford. Follow me on Twitter at NC5_John Burton. Justin, if you don't know, is the host of Penalty Box Radio, and he literally wrote the book on hockey in Nashville. How's that book doing, by the way? It's going well. It's going well. The Making of Smashville. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, a little bit of everywhere. You can always find it. Just type in The Making of Smashville. Has just, for those of you that don't know, has the stories from basically before the franchise was founded all the way to the end of, not this past season, but the season before that. And it came out back in the fall, and it was a lot of fun to put together. Lots of stories from General Manager David Poile, Barry Trotz, former players, a little bit of everything, just how the team came together, how it was named, and some great just trials and tribulations the team went through. You mentioned Barry Trotz. What happened to the Capitals in that series with the Penguins? I thought they were going to win that. I thought they were going to be out of there in 5 games. Now, look, the Pens had a great postseason. It obviously was their year. They are the cup holders, and congratulations to them. Most of you know I used to work in Pittsburgh. I used to cover the Penguins, so a lot of my friends up there in Pittsburgh are very happy. But they win the President's Cup. It looks like they're going to be cruising. Finally, they're going to get over the hump. Ovechkin's going to get a shot at that elusive Stanley Cup ring, trophy ring, whatever. What happened?
Ran into a hot team at the right time. And that's, you see, in any sport, you get hot at the right time, you can win. You can win it all. I mean, we've seen that with hockey, especially when you have teams that are 7-8 seeds, and they go on to make a run.
The Kings a few years ago, they were an 8 seed, and Jonathan Quick stood on his head, and they won the cup.
And they came back from an 0-3 deficit in a series, and win it. That's hot teams. And Washington, they basically spent themselves in the regular season. You see that a lot with teams too.
Sure.
That's really what happened, is that they didn't
Golden State Warriors.
Oh yeah, they didn't click as much as you wanted them to in the playoffs, but Pittsburgh, they just put it together. Because the talent's always been there for Pittsburgh, but then you get a hot goalie like Matt Murray that comes in and just is able to steal the show for you.
From a guy, Marc-Andre Fleury, who, oh, by the way, won them a cup back in 2009.
And Phil Kessel, who Toronto just hated Phil Kessel, and he was apparently the cancer in the locker room. And no, he should have won the Conn Smythe, is what Phil Kessel should have done.
Yeah,
so,
he definitely, all due respect to Sidney Crosby, Phil Kessel should have won the Conn Smythe trophy.
Absolutely. So, hot team at the right time.
All right, let's go to Bob on line 1. Hey there, Bob. How are you?
Doing great. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, I've seen a rumor in the past few days that the Predators might still be interested in obtaining Scott Hartnell. What do you think about the likelihood of that? And secondly, I've read a lot of Canadian columnists and newspaper articles, and I'm afraid, and I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm afraid that Weber is really going to have a very difficult time when he first goes up there in terms of the reception that he gets from the fans. So what do you think about those two things? And I'll listen out there.
Bob, thanks so much for the call. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great questions. Scott Hartnell, I think it's one of those things that at the trade deadline in the season probably could have happened, and rumor has it as well that he was also a name being thrown in when the Ryan Johansson trade went down. At this moment, though, unless there's something else in the works, I don't foresee it happening, just because there's not much room in the roster. You see the Predators roster is pretty full, and there are only maybe 1 or 2 spots that really are open for players to vie for, unless they look at trading the likes of a Colin Wilson or something like that, which I don't think will happen after the playoffs he had and the contract that he's in. So rumors are always going to fly. I just don't see it happening right now, especially with Hartnell's age. They're trying to get younger and faster, and that might have been a good acquisition at the trade deadline this season, but not now in the offseason. I don't think so.
Hopefully, and David Poile said this, hopefully playoff Colin Wilson will become regular season Colin Wilson. If he does that, you definitely don't want to trade that guy.
Absolutely not. And then the Shea Weber thing, I do agree with the assessment right there that it could be difficult for him, because Montreal is a very tough media city, just like Toronto, just like any Canadian city when it comes to the media for National Hockey League. That it could be a little bit tough, because Shea's used to the media in Nashville where, we'll ask tough questions, but there aren't as many gotcha questions.
Right, and we'll back off. When he gives us that look, we usually back off. They're not going to back off in Montreal.
No.
And he's going to be pressed for answers, right?
He will press for answers, and then sometimes press for really stupid questions. I mean, that's one of those things, too. You have so much media up there sometimes, too, trying to make a name for themselves and trying to tick off a player.
It's like in New York covering the Yankees.
Right.
You have all those newspapers, all those media outlets.
How do you stand out?
And the Yankees are the kings of New York, just like the Montreal Canadiens are pretty much the kings all of Canada when it comes to hockey. I mean, them and the Maple Leafs,
Sure.
right? So, I mean, yeah, he could have a tough time there.
It'll be tough. I do think he puts on a good show in terms of that he kind of bounces back statistically because he'll be leaned upon greatly there. So
Sure.
it's one of those things by default he's going to score in terms of points in Montreal. But off ice, it's going to be a big adjustment for him and his family to be there in a different city that values hockey as life in general up there. But great points brought up by Bob.
No question about it. All right. The draft recently. I know. I want to ask you before we get into the draft. Now that Shea Weber's gone, there's an opening for someone to wear the C. Who do you think has the inside track? We've heard Roman Josi. We've heard Mike Fisher. There's some really good leadership on that team. Obviously, Pecorine is a leader in his own way. He's the goaltender. You don't really see a lot of goaltenders, right?
It's actually against the rules.
Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Well, see, you learn something new every day. That's why I had Justin Bradford on the show. I wasn't sure, and I'm glad you cleared that up. So, who would you like to see wear the C, and who do you think the Predators might lean on to be the captain?
Well, just to clarify, too, that rule as well, it's happened before. Roberto Luongo wore the C when he was in Vancouver, but he wasn't able to speak with ice issues because he had to stay in the crease, so he wasn't able to leave his post, so someone else had to act as that. But it's against the rules. It's not supposed to happen. What I'd like to see the Predators do is go young. I don't think it'll happen yet because you have leadership like Mike Fisher there. He has 1 year left in his contract. I think as a transition point, they give it to Mike Fisher. He's a great leader. He's been in leadership roles before. He has worn the A as well. He wore an A in Ottawa as well. Then you transition, and I think it's Roman Josi or Philip Forsberg. In terms of the leadership in the team, the caliber of player they are, how good they are with the media. So it's all these things encompassed of how good they are with people, with the locker room, how well respected they are. Roman Josi finished 5th in Norris Trophy voting, way ahead of Shea Weber in terms of best defenseman. So you look at the way he's continuing to track up. Roman Josi would be great in terms of defense, but they may decide to go in terms of the forward route and having leadership on the forward end. But no matter what, Roman Josi is going to get a leadership role. He's going to wear an A or a C because he deserves to be there on the blue line. You need somebody wearing a letter as well. Right now, no one does. So I really think that happens. I don't think James Neal, in terms of captaincy, fits that role for it, just because of he has some temper issues every once in a while. But you want a good leader. I think it's good to have him as an A because it puts the pressure on him to be a leader. Right. But I don't think the captaincy is there. But I think it's one of those things where it's going to be a Josi, a Fisher, something like that. It would be great to see Forsberg if he wants to take the role. Again, it's one of those things that the coaching staff and the leadership will actually will approach and say, do you want this? So the player has to want it as well. And not every player wants to be a captain. There's a lot of pressure on you from outside sources when you're the captain of the team. You have to talk to the media all the time. Do they want to take that pressure?
Well, my vote would be for Mike Fisher. He's one of the few good-looking, really rich, really successful guys with a gorgeous, successful wife.
Who's he married to again?
That you root for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, by all accounts, we should hate Mike Fisher, but he's such a likable guy. And he's such a genuinely likable guy, and He's better than you in every way, but he's like the anti-Tom Brady. Like Tom Brady is better than you in every way, and he knows it, and he kind of lets you know it. Mike Fisher's like, hey, I'm just a farm boy from Canada. I got lucky, play a little hockey, happened to marry what's her name there?
Carrie something.
Anyway, that's All right. The Preds draft.
Yes.
Dante Fabbro, their #1 draft pick, or their first round draft pick. They finally had a pick in the first round, which was good. That hasn't happened in a while. Dante Fabbro, and he seems like the kind of defenseman that Peter Laviolette likes. He's an offensive defenseman. He can move the puck. He can join the rush. What have you learned about Dante Fabbro?
The kid can skate. That's one of those big things, and that's how you see why they drafted the defenseman they did. And I think I was on the show like the week of the draft as well, and said they're probably going to go defense heavy. Yeah. David Boyle played coy, as he usually does. Even when there's a big trade in the works, he plays very coy. We're going to be very, very quiet, and blows up Twitter in the hockey world with that trade. But very coy and saying just going to take the best player available. Well, Dante Fabbro was in the list for best players available for their pick at number 17 in the first round. And you see why he was there. I like Logan Stanley, who ended up going right after him at number 18, jumped up a few spots from the rankings. But Fabbro is the better skater out of those two players, and Dante Fabbro is fast. He has a quick release on his shot. He's going to be really good. He reminds me of probably more like a Ryan Ellis, but faster and with a quicker snapshot. Ryan Ellis has a great slap shot, but Dante Fabbro's release is tremendous, and he's great with his feet. And you saw that at development camp this past weekend, how fast he is and how quick he is to adjust on the fly, too.
Well, obviously now with PK Subban coming in, the Predators are pretty well stacked at the blue line. What are the chances that Fabbro could make the big club this fall?
No, it's not going to happen.
No, okay.
This is one of those things, this draft year where you see they went defense heavy with Dante Fabbro, Samuel Girard, and then you had Frederick Allard. You had so many different players getting drafted that are defensemen. It's for 3 or 4 years from now. So you have a bunch of guys, you have a few guys going to play college as well, and that gets people uneasy with the Jimmy Vesey situation, but that's very rare for the Vesey situation to happen. And you have a couple of these players going to play together at Boston University. So you have that happen too in the same organization from the time they're drafted and going to play college. It's going to be great for the development of these players to go off and play college, play junior hockey before coming into the Predators, because right now the Predators are set. The top 4 is set. Subban, Yossi, Ellis, Ekholm. Then you have the bottom 2 continue to filter a little bit with a different Weber and Anthony Bitetto and possibly a Stefan Elliott or Irwin. You have some shifting to go there. But the top 4 set, it's 3 or 4 years from now when Yossi is getting into his late 20s, when Ellis and Ekholm get in late 20s, when Subban's exiting his prime. What happens then when you're trying to move players up? It's all about regeneration. That's the big thing that I want to push about the draft. It's not right now because the Predators have never really been that horrible to always draft for players you need right now. It's drafting for the future to make sure they can continue to make Stanley Cup runs year in and year out.
You mentioned the other defenseman on the roster named Weber, Yannick Weber, spent the last couple of seasons in Vancouver. The Preds signed him. They opened the free agency period by signing him. What do you know about him, and how can he help this club?
Well, it all fits in terms of the overall plan for David Poile and what he wants the team to look like to fit into Peter Laviolette's system, and that's getting a little bit faster, a little more offensive. That's why they bought out Barrett Jackman, who provided some leadership there. He signed for 2 years. He had 1 year left in his contract, but just didn't have the speed and the tenacity that the rest of the players did. A little bit older, but still provided some leadership there, but he was scratched late in the season as well. You bring in Yannick Weber, who doesn't produce many points, but he's still fast around the ice. He still can chip in offensively, and I think he's a really great signing for that bottom pair, especially when you look at he's only signed for $575,000 in 1 year. It's a low-risk, high-reward contract in terms of what he can provide.
Kind of the prove-it-to-me situation.
Absolutely. As you have younger players in Milwaukee developing that 1 or 2 years from now could end up making the Nashville Predators, but you don't want to rush them into the situation. You sign a veteran like a Yannick Weber to fill that void.
Now, he wore 6 in Vancouver, correct? He's probably not going to wear 6 with the Preds.
I believe it's already been reported that he will not wear 6.
Oh, okay, good.
Much to the chagrin of people that want to save some money.
Sure, yeah.
Jerseys, but
Weber 6. Just wear your Weber 6 jersey. Justin Bradford is here with us talking Preds, talking NHL hockey. Your phone calls are welcome as well. You can tweet us at NC5_John Burton, at Justin B. Bradford. We'll take a break. We'll come back with your phone calls. We'll talk more hockey on this mid-July night. Stay with us.